Good afternoon and welcome to the Information System Audit course, Module 3, Part 1. It deals with system development, acquisition, implementation, and maintenance application system audit. I believe you must have seen my earlier videos for Information System Audit course, Module 2, and I'm very sure that you must have liked the video and the content. In case if you haven't, then please do check my YouTube channel and have a quick glance at the course that should help you in your forthcoming exam, icai exams. So I have divided the program and the module into a smaller segment considering the time frame. So now this will have two parts, Module 3. It's very exhaustive and very important one. Many questions comes from this module. So I'll be talking in the first part about, if you look at the systems module 3 of ESA, you'll find that it has got 4 chapters. The first chapter talks about project management for system development lifecycle. Second talks about the system development lifecycle need, benefit, and phases. Third talks about software testing and implementation. And the last, which is very important, is the application control. So if I look into all the chapters, it is difficult to do it in proper detail, all the 4. So I've thought of refer to the examination paper of past examination paper of ESEGs, and have come to realize that these are the following important concepts which as an as applicant for ESA exam you should know. You should be familiar with the online auditing techniques, testing in system development life cycle, check digit, parity, checksum, and cyclic redundancy check. Project evaluation review technique, critical path method, Gantt chart, FPA, EVA, time box. These are all techniques of testing the systems. Decision support system, agile system development methodology, object-oriented system development, prototype, and RAD, also known as rapid application development. Now, if I try to cover all the 9 in this video, it will again extend to more than an hour. So I have thought of reducing it, and I'll be doing it in 2 parts. So let's review the important concepts of online auditing techniques. Online auditing techniques, if you talk about that, means a chartered accountant is using computer for the auditing purposes. And normally what we do is auditing is basically, we try to check the try to authenticate the transactions, right? By looking into the evidence which are available. But when you talk about the online auditing techniques, there are specifically designed techniques which a chartered accountant can use. So one is the integrated test facility, is known as ITF. The other is a SCARF, also known as System Control Audit Review File. Third, which is very important, and you definitely should expect a question on third and fourth, which is Audit Hook and the Snapshot. And the last is Continuous and Intermittent Simulation, which is CIS. So I'll be talking about one by one. And let me remind you, all these points which you are reading in this slide, in my slides, like say, for instance, ITF, a fictitious entry is created in live environment. Now, this is basically an option and answer taken from the question itself, which were being asked in the ESA exam. So these are not just the normal comments. These are basically the comments I have tried to collect and put it in the form of an explanation so that you get used to reading such type of options, and your chances of getting the correct answer increases. Right. So what is an ITF? Fictitious entry means that I'll create an entry which is, man-made entry, you can say, which will be pushed into the live environment. Now, live environment means when the regular transactions are coming and they're being processed. So what happened in this case, that ITF allows auditor to enter a dummy or a test transaction, a dummy in the sense which is a fake transaction, to verify the processing and the results of these transactions for correctness. Now, say, for instance, if all the normal routine of transactions are being processed, I'll push one transaction on a couple of transactions and see that the processing rules are being followed and the transaction is processed correctly. Now, process results and expected results are compared to verify the operational and procedural correctness of the system. Now, say, for instance, there is a module which says that in finance itself, let's say, for instance, a transaction more than 20,000 will not be processed. Now, this is what the system is expected to do. So I'll push a transaction which is more than 20,000 rupees, and I'll see to it and get it processed, and I'll see to it that what is the outcome. So if it stops the transaction, then it's okay, fair enough, which means that on comparing the processed result and the expected result, I found that the procedural correctness of the system is there. Second is online auditing technique called as SCARF, that is System Controlled Audit Review File. Now here it is an embedded inbuilt audit module which is used to continuously monitor a transaction. Like say, for instance, there is a person who is sitting as a safeguard, like continuously monitoring. And what happened is that it is just waiting for a special, transaction to happen, and so that it can catch that particular transaction. Now, SCARF is used to collect data for special audit purposes, right? If there is any special audit purpose, like say, for instance, if you are doing a bank audit, if you're trying to find out an audit trail where you wanted to search for a specific pattern or a trend, then you can use SCARF. Now, SCARF records only those transactions which are of a special audit significance, such as transaction above a specified limit, or a transaction related to deviation or exception. I have already discussed about it. This SCARF can be used very beautifully for money siphoning and hawala and all these type of scams, where you can use these system control audit review file to find out and to trace the transactions. Again, very important, third technique of online auditing is audit hooks. Now, as the name itself, hook is, that means in between the transaction, I put in something for that, and it's taken hook sort of a thing to find out the nature of transaction and see what happens. Now, audit hooks are audit software that capture suspicious transaction. Now, these are the ones who are going to catch the suspicious. The purpose of all the online auditing technique is to find out the suspicious transactions or transactions which are not authorized to be passed through the system. Now, audit hook is used for early detection of error or fraud. Now, if you want your system to tell you beforehand that for any fraud or error, you should use audit hooks. Now, these are basically the softwares. Now, audit hooks are basically special codes and special software which is included into the main program, and they help in detection of suspicious transactions that may not take place in the normal course of processing. Snapshot itself, it says, one again suggestion I would like to give you, that even if you get a question on audit hooks or a snapshot, if you're not able to understand or you haven't read about them, try to read the word itself very carefully and you will get an idea. Now, snapshot itself is basically talking about a picture. Now, snaps are taken of the transaction as they move through the various stages in the application system. Now, there are two types of system. One is the system, application system is a part of the system which is designed for performing a specific task. Now, what happened is that for every transaction as they move, pictures are taken. So when audit trial is required, answer has to be the snapshots. Now, that means if you want to have an evidence of what has happened in the sequence of transaction processing, you can simply refer to those pictures which have been taken as the transactions are moving across various stages of the application system. So this provides an audit trail. Now, you should remember the word audit trail is important in case, and it has got direct connection with the snapshot. If audit hook you are talking about, then early detection of errors and fraud. So before processing and after processing, images of the transactions are captured in a snapshot, and correctness of processing can be checked by comparing before and after processing images of the transaction. That's very simple. That is, before processing the transactions and after processing the transactions, I can compare it and find out if there is any error or discrepancy. Then we have fourth one is continuous and intermittent simulation. This is very important. Now, CIS is used whenever the application system uses database management system. Now, DBMS, if an application is connected online or real time with the database, then only thing which can be used as an online auditing technique is continuous and intermittent simulation. Now, database management system, that is DBMS, reads the transaction which is passed on to the continuous and intermittent simulation. If the transaction as per the selected criteria, then the continuous and intermittent simulation examines the transaction for correctness. And if it is not, then it is discarded. The CIS records discrepancies to exception log file, which means if somebody asks, Which of the online auditing technique creates a log file? The answer should be continuous and intermittent simulation, because it clearly says that whatever the transaction discrepancies are being noted, they are being recorded in the form of exception log file. CIS best technique to identify transaction as per predefined criteria. Now, if you have, sorry, if you have already defined the criteria as to what criteria you are going to use for your checking the discrepancies, then you should use continuous and intermittent simulation. Now, again, as usual, as earlier, I have given you some pointers to remember. So if you are talking about online auditing techniques, so if the question is asked on audit hook, then audit hook is the best technique when early detection of error or irregularity is required. Now, early detection means that one is that something has happened, then you are able to detect. Early indication means it's a red flag. Red flag in the sense you will get a warning signal that this might create an error or irregularity in the future. Continuous and intermittent simulation is the best technique for identifying transaction as per predefined criteria. If you have already defined a criteria on the base for identifying transactions, then you should use continuous and intermittent simulation. Now, ITF, that is Integrated Test Facility, is the best technique where fictitious entry is created in the live production environment. Now, that is where you are pushing a dummy transaction into the main transaction. So these three things you should remember as far as online auditing technique is concerned, and you should be able to get the answer. Moving on to the next important concept. Now I'll be talking about testing in system development lifecycle, regression testing, sociability testing, and interface testing. Now, software development testing stages, if you talk about, there are unit testing, integrated testing, system testing, acceptance testing, final testing, and other testing. Now, again, I'll suggest you that you just read, there are many, so you might get confused. So it's better option is that you wait for it and read them carefully. Now, unit testing itself means that you are talking about unit is individual. So let's read it. Unit testing involves testing of individual program or module. So if you are talking about testing an individual program module, then you talk about the unit. Normally, white box approach, that is testing of internal program logic, is used in unit testing. As I move ahead, I'll explain it to you what is white box approach and what is black box approach. Now, unit testing is basically talking about the individual testing of individual program or module. Now, second is integrated testing. Now, integration means the connection, the connectivity. So integrated testing should involve testing of connections of two or more modules or components for sharing information, as simple as it is. Now, if you talk about an application program consists of several modules. Now, these modules do not work in isolation, but they are connected through each other. That's called as interfacing. Now, these interfaces allow sharing of information. So that's what we are talking about. So if you have to check about the testing of, you're trying to test the connection between the programs, modules, and the units, then you're talking about the integrated testing. System testing. Now, system is what? Basically, system is a group of interacting and interrelated elements or components that works together in harmony for accomplishing the goal for which the system is being designed. So in that case, what will happen? System will also have lot many functions, lot many components, lot many parts. So if you're talking about system testing, then you are involved testing of the entire system or the entire functionality. For example, if you're talking about testing of, say, for instance, marketing system or production system or supply chain system, then you're talking about the entire functionality of the system. So system testing can be done, different types of system testings are performance testing, stress testing, volume testing, load testing, security testing, and recovery testing. Again, I suggest read the titles. The performance. Now, performance means something has to do with now when you talk about the application, then you talk about in terms of what? Performance is terms of speed, the delivery. Stress, that is how much volume of stress means related to the volume of transactions, then volume, load, security. We'll see one by one. Now, performance testing is testing measure that evaluates, as I mentioned earlier, speed. What is the speed of the transaction processing? How is the responsiveness and the stability of the software program under a workload? Now, in performance testing, I would test the program for speed, responsiveness, and stability. In stress testing, the process of determining the software ability in maintaining a certain level of effectiveness under unfavorable conditions. Now, if effectiveness in the sense is that doing the right thing or getting the things done correctly. So in this case, the stress testing, when we do, we try to determine the ability of a software in maintaining not the efficiency. Efficiency is related to speed, responsiveness, and stability. I am more concerned now with the effectiveness. That is, whatever the rules have been defined, are they being adhered and compliant or not, especially in unfavorable conditions. Next is the volume testing. Now, software is subjected to huge volume of data. It is also referred as flood testing, and volume of testing is done to analyze system performance by increasing the volume of data. Now, you must have heard denial of service attack. This is a particular type of an attack is being used by malicious people for blocking the site. What happened is that flood testing, in the sense I am giving numerous transactions and massive volume of data. I am pushing in to the particular application to check how the system performs, and that is it able to process all those transactions, or is it not? That's an important criteria. Now, load testing is also the similar type of testing like that of volume testing, but load testing is examining how the systems behave during normal and high loads and determines if a system or a piece of a software can handle high loads given a high demand of end user. As the number of users increases at a particular time, so you will find that my system should be able to handle that load. So if I'm checking that load, I'm talking about the load testing. Security testing is done for uncovering the vulnerabilities. Now, there are two words you will come across. I have discussed in the first module. The one is the vulnerabilities and the other is the threat. Now, threats are always coming from the external environment, and vulnerabilities are the internal to the system. That means I have ignored certain aspects which can lead to ultimately threats. So these are basically vulnerabilities. So always remember, vulnerabilities are internal and threats are external. Of the system, and determining that the data and resources of the system are protected from possible intruders. Intruders means attack or the threats. Recovery testing, that is how much time a system takes to recover if from a failure, if it happens, right? So all these things are there. Next is the acceptance testing. Now, finally, this application system has been developed and it is being passed through all the tests. So last is the acceptance testing is performed to determine whether or not the software system has met the requirement specification. Obviously, when we start developing an application, the programmer, when start developing the application, they have to get in touch with the user and find out what the user wants from the program to be done or accomplished. And based on that, the program is being developed. So once it is done, so the main purpose of this acceptance testing is to evaluate the system's compliance with the business requirement and to verify it has met the required criteria for delivery to the end users. Like, say, for instance, everybody wants in the banks to know that what is the purpose of an ATM machine before it is being actually software has been designed. Once it is done, so at the end, the acceptance testing will be done to find out whether it is in compliance with the business requirement, what is the purpose of the ATM machine of the bank is, and is it giving the efficient services to the end users, that is the customers. Software development testing stages, there's another one called as a final testing. Now, final testing has two parts, the quality assurance testing, also known as QAT, and user acceptance testing is also known as WAT. Now, quality assurance testing, again, assurance means giving guarantee. Now, assurance is the process of ensuring in the sense, I assure you, I can ensure that the product is at the highest possible quality, like we have done in the module 2, quality management and quality assurance. Now, quality assurance testing is used to prevent issues with software product or a service for ensuring the great user experience. Now, one is that the software is being developed and it has few errors, but which users might encounter. But to be ensure that the user has an extraordinary experience with using the software, this QAT is performed. Similarly, user acceptance testing is done in the final stage of any development process for determining that the software does what it is designed to do in the real world situation I have discussed earlier, right? So UAT is done, UAT is the last testing done after functional integration and the system testing, which means that, that's the last testing which a person has to perform before it is being handed over to the person. Now, the other important testings are also there. I mean, these are regression testing, sociability testing, pilot testing, parallel testing, integration testing, Earlier we have seen white box testing, black box testing, alpha testing, beta testing, bottom-up testing approach, and top-down testing approach. Now, you might be worried about it, that this is too much, but let me explain you'll find that them very easy. Now, regression is, the word regression means revision. That means regression testing is about rechecking the changes or modifications for ensuring that the changes and modifications have not introduced any new errors. Now, obviously, what happened is that the software is being developed, it is being tried to put to use. Certain errors or things were required that require modification. They have been done. So again, regression testing will help me in finding it out that after I have modified those corrections or after there was a modification, has it not introduced any new errors? Because when we use a software, it looks very simple, but internally it has got not many components, interconnectivity. So regression testing helps in that case, whenever there is any modification or changes have been done to the software, it doesn't generate a new error. Now, data used for regression testing should be the same data as used in the previous test. That means if you are, for example, if I'm using transaction 1 to 10 for regression testing, so then after the modification, again, I should use only the same transaction from 1 to 10. It should not be the different. Now, the sociability testing. Sociability word itself says that how well you gel with the others. So to determine the adaptability of new system in the existing environment. Now, normally what happens is that the program which is being developed may not be on the same platform. When I say platform, I'm talking about the operating systems, or it's like that. The environment, the development environment may be different. So sociability testing is being performed so that one should come to know that how well the systems get mixed up with the existing environment. Now, sociability test ensures that the new or modified system can work in the specified environment without adversely impacting the existing system. Now, this sociability testing is normally conducted to find out how well the new program is going to being compatible with the existing program. Now, pilot testing itself is a name for given for checking the satisfactory operation of a new system before implementing it at the location. Now, pilot testing in the sense is the pilot programs are that these small programs or the specific programs are being developed. So pilot testing is done. We are going to test only that program which is we have been developed, the pilot program, and before it has been implemented, it has to be checked. Now, parallel testing is the process of comparing result of old and new systems. That's nothing new. We all know that. So parallel testing ensures that the implementation of new system meets the requirements of the user. Now that means before the new system has been implemented, there was a system. And after that, it was, the new system has been introduced. So I'll compare the result of both old and new and then find out what's the purpose which is being fulfilled. But these are very important and they should be remembered for sure. That is the two testing, that white box testing and black box. You should get a question on this. Now, white box testing and a black box testing. Now, white box means a box in which you can see inside what is happening, right? Normally a white box, if you say glass box, whatever, you'll find that what is inside. But in a black box, which is absolutely black, you cannot see what is inside. So that's the way I have thought of understanding it. Now, white box testing involved testing of program logic. Now, logic means how A is connected to B and how B is connected to C and how A, B, and C are connected to D and so on and so forth. So I need to understand in white box what is the logic of the program. That is on what logic the program of this particular module is working. So I need to test that. So white box testing is about testing the program logic. Remember in the unit testing, they have said that white box testing should be used. Now, why they have said? Because when you are talking about individual unit, you can easily check the logic, program logic. Now, white box testing is applicable to unit and interface testing. When you are checking about the interface means you are connecting the two modules. And white box testing requires to have good programming knowledge. Now, is it expected from a chartered accountant to have a good programming knowledge? I think the answer is no. If you know that, that's very good, but it is not expected. So normally in white box testing, when the program logic is to be checked, CAs or chartered accountants are not supposed to check the program logic, but if they can, that will be great enough. So normally black box, the another one is the black box testing. It talks about involved testing of program functionality. Now look at the difference. The one is the logic, the other is the functionality. Logic means why it is doing it. Functionality means what it is doing it. So similarly, black box testing is applicable to UAT and interface testing. and it does not require to having good programming knowledge. So whenever there is a white box testing is asked, you should remember the word program logic. It is applicable to unit and interface testing. When you talk about the black box testing, you talk about the program functionality. What are the functions that a program is going to perform? A chartered accountant is going to check that. It has got, it was applicable mostly in UAT and interface testing. And for black box testing, you don't require to have a good programming knowledge. Now, alpha testing, beta testing, and integration testing. Now, alpha testing is done by internal users, and beta testing is done by external users. You must have used, you must have, I mean, almost me using all this softwares, you know. So you must have sometime come across that this particular software is of a beta version, you know, or alpha version. Now, when you get a software which has got a beta version, that means company has developed a software program. It has done alpha testing by its internal users, that is the employees of the company. They have checked it. And finally, it is being given to the public to check the for the errors and the functionality. And that is called as a beta testing. So alpha testing is done by internal user primarily. And the alpha testing may not involve testing of full functionality. Now, when you as a user, internal user, when you are checking, you're not concerned with all the details of the program, because those details can be checked by, like, say, for instance, if Microsoft has developed the Microsoft Office, so their internal user will check few functions of the program. And if they say that this is a beta version of Microsoft Office and they release it for the public use, then you find that the beta testing is done by the external user, because you cannot define how the program should be used, because if you are a developer, you have a defined way of using the application. But as an external user who has not developed it, whose only job is to use the functionality of the program, so he may use the program very differently. So beta testing involves testing of full functionality, and it is alpha testing does not involve testing of full functionality. I hope it's clear. Then integration testing, that is integration testing is done to ensure flow of information between two or more systems is correct and accurate. I believe we've done it earlier also. Now, again, these two are very important. The software development testing stages, that is other testings, and there is one is a bottom-up testing and the other is a top-down. Now, bottom-up, like say, I'll just give you an example which should make you very clear without reading the slide. Now, bottom-up approach is building a wall brick by brick. There is one brick, second brick, third brick, and so on, layering bricks on top of it. So when you are doing that, you exactly know how many bricks are there in one layer, how those bricks are being laid down. That is the bottom-up approach. So normally, bottom-up approach is a very constructive approach that is you're trying to construct. But top-down approach, when you talk about, that is, you are having a bigger view. You stand on top of the roof and then you look at the side wall, and then you try to understand, okay, this wall might consist of so many bricks and so many layers. So that is, top-down is a bigger view, and bottom-up approach is a very, very narrow and focused view. Now I'll read it. It is testing of individual units or programs or modules. Remember the bricks, individual bricks I'm talking about. Then again, bottom-up approach has very, very narrow focus. I can see easily one brick laid onto the another brick, before it becomes a final big wall. It saves, bottom-up approach saves time, as testing of individual units can be done before completing the entire program. Since each brick which I am putting onto the wall, I can check the correct, durability of that brick before I finally check the durability of the entire wall. It helps in detection of critical errors. As I am making the wall, software applications, the small units which you are developing, you can easily trace the errors. Moving to the top-down approach, it is testing of the entire program. That means entire wall. I'm trying to look at the entire wall and then trying to find out how many bricks are there, how many layers are there, so on and so forth. So it is testing of the entire program. It has a very, very broader focus. It is most suited for development of a prototype. A prototype is basically, I thought of designing a pen, a glove, which has got a torch in the, LED lights in the fingers. So how do I explain my concept? I develop one working model of it, and that's basically called as a prototype. It helps in early detection of interface errors, because when you're talking about the program, so then you're talking about the interface errors. So in testing SDLC, the points to remember, test data should be designed as per the live workload for accurate test result. Now, live workload in the sense that is when you are talking about testing data, it should be designed as per the live in the sense which is the actual workload. Testing should always be done in the test environment. It should never be done in the live or production environment, because The test environment is a controlled environment, and live and production environment may influence the entire system. So be very careful about that. Now we review important concept, that is the check digit. Check digit is basically a mathematically calculated value added to data for ensuring the original data have not been altered or changed. Now the name itself says check digit. Now the difficult part of, I mean, before I move into the technicality of check digit and these, checks, I'll just talk about it. What happened is that in the computers, the digits are stored in the form of, the numbers are stored in the form of digits, zeros and one. So like say, for instance, everything is stored in the form of zeros and one, they're called as bits. So whenever a transposition or transfer of data takes place, it goes in the form of zeros and one, technically, which is represented in the form of a circuit as on and off. So there are chances that there are many errors may happen, during the transposition and, even during the transcription. So for avoiding those errors, these type of checks are incorporated. So what happens, check digit is a mathematically calculated value, which is added to a data for ensuring that the original data have not been altered or changed. Check digit helps in avoiding the transposition and transcription error. Now, say for instance, there is a number called, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I have calculated a check digit by adding all these numbers and dividing by the number. Let's say, for instance, that is 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I have added the word 4. Now, transposition error in the sense, if you change the position of the digits here and there, that is, 1, 3, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. So in that case, what happens, because of this change in these positions, you'll find that the check digit will not match. So as a result, you can easily find out that there is a transposition error. Now, transcription error, that is the error when you are typing the data. That means, again, you are here doing some errors. So these errors can also be checked with the help of check digit. Check digits basically ensure accuracy. Now, please remember, all the words which are highlighted in red, they are the one they have been asked in the examination questions. Now, cyclic redundancy check or checksum or parity bit is used for identifying a transmission error. Cyclic redundancy check or checksum or parity bit is used for ensuring the completeness, and they're also used for ensuring the integrity. So either of the three options, if you get in your examination question, that is cyclic redundancy check or checksum or parity bits. And if you have in options transmission error, go for it. If you have in options completeness, go for it. If you have an option integrity, go for it. Now, cyclic redundancy checks for sure detect errors. These are complex mathematical calculations, which means the error cannot be omitted when these checks are implemented. Similarly, forward error control FEC helps in detecting and correcting transmission errors. The one is that CRC, if you look at it, it will tell that there is an error, but it will not correct it. But forward error control is a type of a check which is incorporated that not only detects, but it also corrects the errors, transmission errors in the data. So I'll just give you the answering preferences for your questions. If you in your question anything which is asked related to check digits or cyclic redundancy check, checksum, or anything, the first preference should be given to CRC because it is too complicated. So I just thought, let me put it this way. If CRC is not there, then as an option, then preference should be given to the checksum. That means if you remember, I have given the sequence CRC, checksum, or parity bits. CRC, checksum, or parity bits. So the first option should be CRC. If you doesn't have CRC, then you go for checksum, and then you go for parity bits. If CRC and checksum both are not there in the option, then preference should be given to the parity bits. Now, parity bit is basically, this is an extra bit added to the error detection. Now, parity bit is just like check digit. It's an additional extra bit, which is bit means I have told you that zeros and one. So single zero and single one is called as a bit. So the parity bit is 1 if number of bits, number of 1 bits is odd, and 0 if the sum of the 1 bit is even. Parity bits helps in checking data completeness and data integrity, and parity bits are used to check completeness of data transmission. Parity check is a hardware control that detects data errors when data are read from one computer to another or during transmission. So I don't want you to remember all these. I just wanted that if you talk about the parity bits, remember that it is for extra bit is added on for the data correct detection. Now checksums are same as parity but are capable of identifying complex errors. I have told you that there are complex errors also. Now, those errors can be detected if you are using the checksum type of a control in your program testing. Cyclic redundancy check. Redundancy means duplication. So cyclic redundancy checksum or redundancy checksum. These are advanced version of the checksums. That means they're based on advanced mathematical algorithms, which helps in for sure detecting all the errors. Now CRC for sure detects the errors. Errors cannot escape if you have CRC there. Similarly, then again I have mentioned that forward error control. When a forward error control, in the sense the name itself says that you are not only detecting the error but you are also correcting the errors. So as I have mentioned, this is the last slide, hopefully, that is first preference, you should give it to CRC. If CRC is not there, give the preference to checksum for answering the question. If both are not there, then go for parity. Now, atomicity is again a very interesting concept, which says normally you must have seen that, for example, when we are watching, let's say, for instance, earlier, you must have seen the VCR if you are watching. So suddenly the light goes off. Then what happens is that the movie, when we start to play, it starts playing from there itself. That's the real atomicity is. That means it says that when a transaction is taking place and if something happens in between because of which the transaction cannot be completed, then yeah, for example, if I have pressed my if I've used my credit card for making the payment, and if I have entered my CVV number, and if I press enter, and by the time it is being processed, suppose there is some electric mishap and there's incompleteness of the transaction, then what happens? So it shouldn't, the entire chain of transaction following from my CVV number, if because of some error happens, it should either fully happen or should not happen. That means either it should complete the entire transaction or it should say that the transaction is not happening. Those who are using credit card, debit card, and they must have encountered this. Sometimes it so happens that it says, the transaction failed. That means that the entire transaction could not be completed because in between there is some errors because of which database cannot be accessed, right? So that's the atomicity ensures that transaction must happen either fully or not happen at all. It should not be incomplete. That is, four systems have been updated and 3 systems have been left, right? So atomicity is a feature of database system where a transaction must either fully happen or not happen. Atomicity principles requires that the transaction should be completed in its entirety or not at all. If an error or interruption occurs, all changes made to that point are backed up, right? Which means that if during the transaction, if there is an error or something, anything happens, then the transactions are rolled back to the previous state, right? So when we've completed this, and out of this, I mean, it's a long session. So though I tried, so we have reviewed the important concepts of online auditing techniques, testing SDLC checks, digits, parity checksum, CRC. And in the second part of the module 3, that we'll be talking about PERT, CPM, Gantt charts, FPA, EVA, time box, decision support system, agile system development methodology, object-oriented system development, prototype, and RAD. So with this, we've come to the end of the first part. I hope this information should be useful for all of you who are preparing for the exam. Soon I'll be doing the module 3 part 2, and after that I'll be doing another session for practicing questions for the module 3 in totality. I once again thank you for watching this, and I sincerely request, if you really like my efforts, it takes a lot of effort in designing these and presenting it. So if you really liked it, then please share it with your peer groups so that they can also get benefit of it. You can request all your friends, those who are appearing for these exams, to please visit my YouTube channel and subscribe it. I want that if I'm doing something, putting efforts, then it should be, really make sense to the people who really need the help. Thank you very much for your patience listening. Have a great day.